Good evening and welcome to the Suzette Speaks Show. I'm your host, Suzette Speaks. I'm a TV host and podcaster out of Miami, Florida. I'm here with a very deep topic today. A lot of people do not talk about this, and some of us are becoming much more aware of the Black girls. And I'll put it like that. I know I'm talking about Black women, but I'll say Black girls because that's the name of my guest's podcast. Her name is Sonhara Eastman. She's a screenwriter. She's a playwright as well as a podcast host that hosts a show around fertility. And I think we are going to have a very good discussion about it. If you're a woman or if you're a man interested in why there is this kind of silent crisis going on in the Black community when it comes to fertility issues, tonight's show is for you. If you're watching on Facebook, come on in, say hello, drop where you're watching in the chat box, as well as if you're watching Team Replay, please come on in, hit the like button, and let me know what you think after the show by leaving a comment, liking, and sharing. So let's bring my guest up. Without further ado, Miss Sonhara
Hello.
Eastman, how are you?
How are you?
I'm fantastic. Glad to have you on.
So glad to be here.
So, all right, you are a busy woman. You have many hats. Tell us a little bit about yourself first and foremost.
Sure. So I am a playwright. I'm a screenwriter. I went to NYU. That's where I kind of honed my skills. So I've just been out there telling stories and really trying to tell stories that are important. And infertility is one of those stories that are super important to me because I dealt with the issue for 7 years. And there was so much, especially when I started the process, there was so much silence around the issue. And I remember when I was in grad school, I was trying to write about this project. I was writing Black Girls Guide to Fertility then. And my professor at the time said, he didn't ask me if the script was about me. He accidentally called one of the characters by my name. And I remember just feeling like a shell of myself because I was trying to hide behind the character. Yeah. I didn't want anyone to know that it was me. So clearly he knew that it was me. And he accidentally said it. And I was like, oh my God, like everyone in here is going to think that I'm dealing with infertility. They're going to think I can't have children. And I think I said, oh, the story is based off of a relative or something. I end up making that up. But it's just so much shame involved in the topic that I just felt compelled to write about it and compelled to really just put a face with the name to show, okay, yeah, I'm a Black woman. Yeah, I had trouble having a child, but that does not make me any less of a woman. And it's time that we discuss this issue so we can break down the stigma, because so many people feel, oh, if I'm dealing with this issue, then I'm less than myself. And that could be further from the truth.
Yes, there is so much there I want to ask you about. Y'all hit the like button. I see you, Alaska man in Jersey. Welcome everyone watching on Facebook. Hit the like button over there, as well as you can come on over to YouTube. Might as well subscribe and let me know what you think about tonight's topic. We're talking about in a podcast that's named Black Girls Guide to Fertility, hosted by Miss Sonhara Eastman. And she's talking about her personal journey. I'm asking her how she even got into this topic. So you have many talents and you are a very dynamic woman. So this is something that I think, especially when it happens to a woman like yourself or otherwise situated, it is a shock. Some people are unaware that this can happen no matter how young or how old.
Yeah.
This is a big conversation sidebar on YouTube where it's like, y'all wait until y'all eggs all dried up and whatever.
Yeah.
But I know women who are in menopause at 34. I know women who have had endometriosis, and we're going to talk a little bit about those and why, what led up to your personal journey. So you wrote about this issue for a class. Yes. And your professor messed around and called out your name as a character name. Yes. And you like, wait a minute, why is my business in the street? I thought I was being covert and gave the character a different name, but now y'all telling me, this is me. So was this kind of like a journal turned play, or what was that?
It really was a journal, just of me feeling like an outsider, so to speak, and really wanting to talk about that. So just to backtrack, when I wrote this in class, I kind of stopped writing it because I got embarrassed. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want anyone to think it's me, so I'm not gonna focus on this. So then I got frustrated one night, and I did fertility treatments for almost 7 years. I got frustrated one night because someone asked me like, oh, what are you waiting for? You're not gonna get any younger. And when I got married, I was 31 years old. So it wasn't like I was, in my 40s saying, oh, I wonder why I'm not getting pregnant. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
I was literally 31. And so we thought, okay, instantaneously we're going to get pregnant. Like I didn't know. So for the time to go on and people say, oh, what are you waiting for? You're not getting younger, or don't
No,
feel
people get in your business who don't belong in your
yeah.
business. This is
And
a
they,
big thing in our culture, in American culture, but
yeah.
in the Black diaspora especially, we are very big on, and I've learned because I have friends also who've been married 10, 15 years and have not had children,
Yeah,
but it's because they have issues, whether with him or her.
exactly.
So I think this assumption, guys, everybody watching, put a message in the chat if you agree
Mhm.
that we have to do a better job of not kind of sticking our opinion into or inserting it into someone else's life
Exactly.
without this consciousness of not everyone, just because you're married and want a baby, can have a baby. And
Exactly.
that is for whatever age. And I'm glad you said, I was going to ask you, how old were you when you first
Exactly.
discovered? So did you find so to be married and to be blissful and be ready for your husband and all this, and then to find out this is such a difficult thing and your body is not doing,
Mhm.
what you thought it would be doing.
Yeah.
Tell me about those feelings. What was
So
it? Did you go to the doctor right away, or?
I waited almost a year. And so the weird thing was that my husband is a little bit older than me. So he already had children. He had 3 sons. And so he was like, oh, like this is going to move quickly. He actually, when he was in the military, he got a vasectomy. So when we met, he got a reverse vasectomy. He was like, I'm telling you, like, this is going to happen quick. I had to get a
Shoot 'em up, shoot 'em
vasectomy.
up, shoot 'em up.
Exactly. He's like, I had to get a vasectomy because I just, like I could look at someone like they get pregnant. So but yeah, then when we got married, like nothing happened. So I'm like, okay, something wrong with him, like something happened with the surgery, like something go wrong. And so we
Mhm,
waited a year. I went to my OBGYN, and she put me on a medication. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's
mhm.
supposed to stimulate your ovulation.
Yeah.
So did that, nothing happened. And she's like, okay, I'm going to refer you to a fertility doctor. And so we went through that whole rigmarole. One doctor came in, then she left the practice, another doctor came in. And by the time this is like 2 years have passed. And so that one doctor, the doctor who ended up seeing me said, you have PCOS. She's like, and your husband has low motility. And I'm like, wait, what the what? And I'm like, what is that? She was like, well, it's a hormonal imbalance. And some people have, what they miss, they don't ovulate, they don't do those things. But the weird thing was my body was doing it. So then I
Mhm.
was really confused. And then my husband has low motility. That's like when your sperm moves kind of slow.
Not
So
swimming like they used to.
exactly. So like the two of you are like the worst two people that could have found each other. We're like, what? Like, what do you mean by that? So we left there just feeling so disappointed. And then another doctor came into the practice, Dr. McCarthy Keith, amazing, amazing doctor at Shady Grove. And she was like, listen, guys, we're going to make this work. By the time then we had did all the stuff, we did like 9 IUIs, which is intrauterine insemination. And we just like, I'm like, I don't even know what to do next. And she was like, well, let's move on to IVF. And all this stuff costs.
Yes.
It's
I'm gonna
not.
pause you. This is wow. I'm glad you're kind of giving us that look back at the journey, because I think sometimes again there's this glorification of you need youth to be able to have babies. And
Mhm,
I'm telling you, there's a lot of people with you who can't
mhm.
have babies, and a lot of older women who are popping them out to a
Exactly.
lot of people's surprise. So
Exactly.
when we're thinking about this, be careful that we don't stereotype or categorize people automatically. So
Mhm.
at 31, you had gone through, thank goodness, your husband, first and foremost, was able to suggest as well as participate
Yes.
in fertility kind of
Yes.
inquiries,
He
because
was
a lot
willing.
of people don't really know that men oftentimes can have issues as well,
Exactly.
where they're not able to
Mhm,
have the same quality
mhm.
which I call of I want to say ejaculate, but I hope I
Yeah,
don't get so
your
the
sperm quality.
yeah, the sperm is not moving. The sperm is
Yeah,
not moving. Or other
exactly.
issues. So you
Mhm.
mentioned something called PCOS,
Yes, polycystic ovary syndrome.
ovary syndrome, and I
Um,
just know that's been in the news because of Kiki Palmer.
yeah.
So it's actually really important that we talk about it. So what
Mhm.
is PCOS and how did it manifest in your body?
So for me, the doctor said basically I had cystic ovaries. That was the qualifying factor for me, and I had insulin, high insulin. although I don't have diabetes, it's kind of like a precursor for diabetes.
Mm,
I still don't have diabetes, thank God.
yeah.
But those two things qualify me for that. But other people can have where they don't ovulate. They have really bad acne. Some people grow hair, facial hair on their face, on the back of their neck, things like that. I never had any of those symptoms. Like I would have never known that I had PCOS had I not done infertility treatment.
Mm, yeah.
But yeah, basically it's a hormonal imbalance. And
I've read
so
about it as well. Pardon me, that sometimes it cause weight gain in the center of the body.
mhm,
It also causes very tender breasts in some people.
yeah, but
And
again,
yeah,
I'm an odd case in that because I'm very slender. I don't have any
wow.
of
None of
those
the telltale signs of
exact
PCOS.
none of
Wow.
those hidden cases of PCOS where I qualify with the high insulin, and then the cystic ovaries. Yeah.
Okay. So the doctors changing, I also think is not unusual because
Yeah.
most people need
Mhm.
answers that maybe one provider is overlooking and then another provider, for whatever reason. I always hear people going to like multiple physicians to try to
Mhm.
figure out what's wrong with them. Or I
Mhm.
shouldn't say what's wrong, God forgive me. I mean in terms
What's
of
happening?
what
Yeah.
is causing this.
Yeah.
I mean
Mhm.
in a different way. Sorry about that.
Yeah, of course.
So you know what I mean. I don't mean anything negative like
Yeah.
blaming because I hate that it's like you're blaming the individual. Something is wrong.
Mhm.
This is your body. This is how you came into the world.
Mhm.
It's not something that we can control.
Exactly.
So when you looked at what you said you did 9 times, what again? You did.
IUI, which is intrauterine insemination, where they basically take the man's sperm and they insert it in
Oh,
your
manually.
cervix. Yes,
Okay.
to hope that you will conceive that way. So it's a cheaper option. It's about 1,500, at least then, 1,500 per pop. That does not include medication. So yeah, we did a bunch of those, and so in between that time, like I would quit. I'm like, I'm not going back because every time you hear no, it didn't work, you're like, okay, I'm not going back. And then I moved. I'm from New York originally, so I moved back to New York when I went to grad school, and then I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. Then after grad school, I went back. I came
Yeah.
back to Atlanta. Then I was like, okay, we're going to try again, and then we met with more failure. And that's when I started the podcast after that.
So where were your support groups? Shout out to everybody in the chat. The last great good man in Jersey said, for every 40-year-old people who's had their first child, there are 2 more who've miscarried and likely kept it quiet. And not only 40-year-olds, this is where I'm saying my brother.
Mhm.
I know young people at 21 miscarried,
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
we have this again,
Mhm.
stigmatization of
Mhm.
a lot of what can have truth to it, but
Mhm.
without actually looking at the broad spectrum of where it actually
Mhm.
occurs, which is not just among that specific population. I
Exactly.
think we don't talk about miscarriage at all.
Mhm.
So when people have young miscarriage, and I have various friends, I'm talking about 20s and 30s,
Mhm.
seeing them go through that process. And
Mhm.
again, it seems so taboo, like something went, quote, wrong. No, for centuries, for eons, this
Mhm.
has happened and is a natural part of the life cycle. It's painful,
Mhm.
spiritually, mentally, emotionally. I was going to ask you about where you were getting your emotional support. Obviously, you were married, but I find, again, a lot of people keep this as a secret.
Yeah.
That was a literal stat. Okay, thank you. Get me right. He said that was a literal stat. Get it. The last good man in Jersey. All right, touche. I will look at that as well. But I guess I know anecdotally, sir, that
Mhm.
that happens at every age. But I respect your opinion and thank you for bringing your literal stat.
Mhm.
Brown Gal Peace Lounge says a few of my no, they keep on my toes and I respect it. But like I said, I hear that and I know people personally,
Yeah.
21, 22,
Yeah,
25
exactly.
had miscarriages.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
A few of my family members have PCOS. Yes, they have
Mhm.
weight gain.
Mhm.
Yes, the hair growth, excessive hair growth, etc. Sometimes like the acne, like Kiki
Mhm.
Palmer, but
Mhm.
not everyone. Sonhara is an exception. So
Yeah.
she didn't have any of this. So this is something, ladies, let's use this as a teaching
Mhm.
tool where we can suggest you go get tested for it or
Mhm.
ask your OB about it if you have any of these symptoms or maybe none at all
Mhm.
and you're having issues in this area. I
Mhm.
mean, endometriosis. I've
Mhm.
had a couple of guests on the show talk about their journey with endo,
Mhm.
blocked fallopian tubes, the body. I mean, the miracle of life is that we come in with these billions of cells and they're all functioning. But it's just a matter of, genetics that not all of them function for
Exactly.
every single body, every single time,
That's what we want them
miracles.
to.
Right, exactly. I'm like, come on, y'all. We're actually, that's why we used to say it's a blessing to have a
Yes,
child. It's a blessing because
it
it
really
wasn't
is
that
when
easy all
you
the
think
time.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, so salute Grayfield and podcast in the building. Y'all come on in, hit the like button. Talking to Miss Sonhara Eastman about her journey into making a podcast.
Mhm.
But at first, she was actually the person living this as her kind of silent truth,
Yeah.
married and unable to have a child.
Mhm.
So when we're talking about emotional state of mind, what would be your emotional state of mind, especially in those earlier
Oh God.
series?
It was
Crying.
horrible. It was really bad. It's always tell people smiling faces tell lies. And in the Black community, even in my household, it's like you don't tell your business to anybody. You keep your business to yourself. So even when people would say something, I'd be like, oh, well, we're not ready yet, or I would say different things like that. But I really, because I kept it to myself, I didn't have an outlet. And so I remember when I started my podcast, I just was so frustrated. Someone had really gotten on my nerves. Someone asked me another question, and it was just like, okay, I've had enough of this because
Don't y'all.
people don't know when to stop. And I would, for me, even when I meet couples and I realize, oh, they've been together for a while, they don't have kids, it's possible something is wrong. But I'm never going to be the person to ask, oh, what are you waiting for?
No, I
Oh, why
assume
don't you
now. I'm
have kids?
like, they might be having
Oh, your
difficulty.
clock is ticking. Like,
Yeah,
you need to remind me of that every time we're in a setting.
I got this,
Yeah,
guys, and especially family. And I sometimes I think they mean well. Sometimes I think they're just uncouth or rude or
yeah,
just directly trying to
no
what did I say?
comment.
Put you on blast. But some of them do mean well, and it's like they don't know culturally how to say what they want to say without kind of putting it out there like this.
Mhm,
So I hear y'all, and we gotta again make make it a cultural norm that it's not always in
mhm,
your face. You all up on people,
mhm.
where your baby at? When y'all gonna have a baby? Because I just assume now when I see couples that have married long, I'm always like, they might have issues. Y'all support
Exactly.
the stream if you can on the Cash App or the Super Chat. I appreciate y'all. We're gonna have a holiday show coming up Saturday, FYI. So
Right.
can't wait to have you on here. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat as well. I see you watching. Thank you so very much. Welcome everyone. Hit the like button. Talking Black Girl's Guide to Fertility. I want to pivot now a little bit more on the podcast side.
Mhm.
So the emotional damage is like, okay. So wait. Pause. Let me kind of get to because I think you're a mom now.
Yes, my
So
daughter's
let's get to
3
this
years old.
joy first. The grief, the joy, like the emotional roller coaster is real. So
Yeah,
7 years is a long time, y'all, not to
right.
conceive and wanting a baby with your husband
Mhm,
and not having an outlet, not having a lot of people you can talk to.
mhm.
So tell me what it's like when you do find quote unquote success in this process.
So it was very interesting. I had just completed the web series. I have a web series about this as well. I just completed the web series. I got a call for a job in LA, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, I can come, but I'm doing this is my final IVF. If it doesn't work, I don't even care. I was like,
Mm.
I just have to, I'm literally like a few days away from doing my embryo transfer. So I have to complete it. And so the lady was like, okay, don't worry. I'll wait for you. I'm going to hold the job for you. I'm like, cool. So I did my transfer. I go back out to LA. Like, I'm doing every single thing wrong. Like, you can't lift things over 25 pounds. Like, I'm throwing my suitcase on the plane. Like, I'm giving myself injections at the wrong time because I got confused.
Oh,
I
East
got
Coast
LA, the
versus
time
West Coast
difference. Yes.
time.
And
Yes.
so when I realized it was like a week later, and I was like, oh my God, like, I'm giving myself the shots at the wrong time. So because I wasn't in Atlanta, my doctor said, okay, I need you to go test in California since you're there. So I made an appointment. And so they only confirm it through blood work. So I made an appointment at a fertility clinic, and it was packed in there. I mean, standing room
Oh
only.
yeah. This is a real thing. I don't know
It
if it's the
was
food. I don't know
insane.
what it is, but yes.
It was
Yes.
insane. Standing room only. So I do my blood work. I get out of there. I go over to my job. And then they call me. My doctor's office calls me a couple hours later. They're like, hey, so your test came back positive. And I'm like, they mixed my test up with somebody else. There was like, yeah, a bunch of people in there. There's no way. So the nurse,
As
Sonhara,
in you're pregnant.
exactly. Sonhara, I need you to listen to me. This is not a mistake. Listen to me. On
Oh.
Monday, you need to go back there and retest. Go back on Monday. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I'm still paying it no mind. I think I waited till Monday. I went and retested, and then that same day I went to CBS. My husband was there. I went to CBS, and he was like, "Just take the test. Just take the pregnancy test. Let's see what happens." So I took the because all this time for 7 years I've taken pregnancy test. Everything's negative. So I'm like, I don't want to do that. He was like, "Take it. I'll look at it." So I pee on the stick. I hand it to him, and he was like, "You're definitely pregnant. This says positive." I was like, "There's no way." And then the doctor called me after that. She's like, "Sonhara, like it's positive again. You need to come home." And I'm like, "What?" So yeah, it was like the time where I just honestly, I really didn't care anymore. Like in my mind,
You gave up. You were, I'm done.
Yeah,
Emotionally,
like
I'm sure you're spent. How many times did you do the IVF?
that was my third time. That was my third time doing the IVF. Yes.
And talk about cost there.
So the IVF, we ended up doing a package, and we got in just at the right time. But IVF can cost like $20,000 a pop. And so with us, we got in before our fertility clinic merged with another clinic. We got in at the right time. My husband is a veteran. And so we paid total $20,000, which is still a lot of money.
Wow.
We paid $3,000 for all 3 tries. So it was basically, you could try as many times as you could physically try within a year. And that was our deal. So that was my last try for that year. And we would have to pay again. And I was like, we're not paying again. Like,
no, God, you have this. This is it, Lord. This is
exactly,
it.
exactly.
Oh my gosh. So on the last try of the third day, the third time of the package of 3 at the discount, what was not a discount, but still a lot of money. And here we are. And you're like, I don't believe this. And it's true.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was in shock.
Did you, who was your first phone call after y'all looked at it together? What was the emotions?
I didn't say anything that day. I think the next day I called my parents because I was still like, I had to process it. Like, there's no way. There's no way. And I called my parents, and then I text. So I have a pastor in LA who's still my pastor. He had prayed for me even before this happened. And he was like, "Hey, God told me you're going to have a kid." And I'm just like, whatever. Like, I don't need to hear anything about any children. He was like, "God said you're going to have a kid. Oh, wow. It's going to happen." He said, "And you're going to come back here and you're going to tell me about this kid." And literally, it was a couple months after that, I conceived. And so I called him and watched. I texted him first, and then he called me. And so he was like, "I knew it." He's like, "God is not going to lie." Like, and we were just praying on the phone and like crying. Like, it was so.
I'm about to say, I would have been crying. Yeah.
It was so.
Somebody would have told me that and it came through. It would have been like, not only that, just based on all of the time, the energy, the attention, the focus out of your life. You're doing your job. You're still working. You're still kind of navigating life. And this is this big kind of elephant in the room of your life. And it's draining in terms of the energy that you put towards it. Thank you, Doug. Supporting the stream. Appreciate you, brother. And he was over there when I was on Roland Martin earlier this afternoon. Brown gal. He's lounges, loving that. The outcomes. But it's a struggle. And it's something that I think, especially as you point out, you're in the fertility clinic over there in LA and it's packed.
It was packed.
So yeah.
Anything like that. Atlanta has been crowded, but this was literally, when I say shoulder to shoulder, waiting in the hall, waiting for your name to be called. And I'm like, what is going on in this place?
Yes. And again, some of it might be genetic, some environmental, we don't know, but there's a lot going on with people's bodies. I know they just opened in my family's from originally Jamaica. They just opened a fertility clinic there. And one of my aunts was like, "Yo, it's packed."
Wow.
People over there packed. Like it's again around the world, depending if you're developed or developing, depending on the advancement of your country, and if you even have access to this, there's been a trend towards like people needing help. So there's no shame in it. Real quick, I want to get to the podcast, but the Alaska man in Jersey has a question. Says, talk about what it was like during IVF. So the process, you talked about injections. I think it was maybe the track star Lolo Jones. I didn't watch it, but she recorded herself giving herself injections for either during the or to retrieve the eggs. So talk a little bit about that process.
Egg retrieval. So for IVF, you have to start. Some people just freeze their eggs, right? They want to preserve their time, so they freeze their eggs. So that's part of the process. And so you have to give yourself injections in order to make that happen. So you're injecting yourself with hormones. For me, my husband travels to work. So I'm terrified of needles, terrified. And so I had to gain the courage to do it myself. But at the time, since COVID's happened, everyone has left the fertility clinic. I feel like everyone's all over the place. But I had such a supportive unit at the fertility office, and they were like trying to show me how to give the injections. I said, listen, you're going to have to do this yourself. My sister's a nurse. I was like, no, I was driving to her house every night for her to help me. They're like, you're doing too much. Like, you can do it. They were sending me videos, and one nurse like drew circles on my, give me your butt.
Yes.
Like,
you had to put it in your own buttocks.
Yes. So it was crazy. Nightly, you had to do that every night until your cycle term came for them to do the embryo transfer. And then once they did the embryo transfer, you still had to give yourself injections until they gave you a pregnancy test, which is by blood. And if it's negative,
so we're talking about 2 weeks, a month. How long?
Oh gosh. So it's definitely at least a month. So my first time doing it, I started with the egg retrieval, and I went all the way through, and we stopped before we did the embryo transfer because my body was overstimulated. So some people, again, with PCOS don't ovulate. I was ovulating. And so with overstimulation, you can end up being hospitalized, all those things. So they stopped me on everything. They stopped me on all the hormones. I'm like, you have to wait. So I guess it probably was a good month of me just giving myself injections before they stopped the process. And then again, another good month of me giving myself injections before they stopped again to do the transfer.
Oof, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I have friends who have done it. I have not actually asked them in detail what it was like.
Yeah.
But I know, I can imagine physically, mentally,
Yeah.
that is a lot to deal with. Hey, Mars.
Starts hurting from the injections because
your butt hurts.
Yeah, it actually starts to make it hard. It's very weird. You have to massage. They tell you to massage your
booty
every night and rotate sides so that you don't, end up with that hardness. But when you're doing them repeatedly back to back, especially in my case, because we were not trying to miss out on our year,
right? Yeah,
of our money, like it was just hard.
So is that the muscle like?
Yeah, it's the muscle. So it's the muscle right outside of your buttocks.
Yeah. So were you working out? Can you do any of that?
So you could work out whatever you were doing normally. You could do all those things. Now, once you did the embryo transfer, they didn't want you to do anything. Okay. They wanted you to kind of stop everything until they knew what was what, if you were pregnant or not.
Wow. So this is a lot, and I'm glad kind of take a look behind the curtain, guys. I get sympathetic pain. I'm an empath. I'm like, oh Lord, oh my God.
Yeah.
I feel you.
Medications too, oral medication, and then vaginal medication. Yeah, we have to stick progesterone up your vagina.
Wow.
All to support the pregnancy.
That is for the egg retrieval, or that's for the pregnancy part?
That's for the if you're moving forward with your embryo transfer.
Okay.
I don't recall that was for the egg retrieval. I don't think I had to do that for the egg retrieval.
No, probably not.
Embryo transfer.
I'm gonna say my homegirls would have told me if that was important. And I mean, again, this is so intense and extensive and kind of invasive in a sense to your natural flow, your natural like where your mind would be, and on top of like your body having to ingest all these new hormones telling it what to do. Were you moody? Did you cry? Did you laugh?
My husband would say that I'm moody. I would say that I wasn't. I would definitely say that I feel like I'm not an emotional person, but I know there were times like that when I got in the car and I drove off and left him because he was taking too long. And that was just so funny to me. Like I was just behind the wheel, like laughing and crying at the same time. And he was like, it's the hormones. He's like, you're acting crazy. I'm like, no, you were taking too long.
Now, did you?
No, he would say yes.
Would there be any other side effects or clinically, are there any side effects to this?
Not that we know of at this moment.
Okay.
When you have to do some of the procedures, even the egg retrieval, like, of course they say you can die because they're putting you to sleep, all those things. So you have to sign off on that. But in terms
you have to go under for egg retrieval?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's considered local anesthesia, but it's still risky.
You sleep.
Yes, so you have to sign off on all that stuff. In terms of the medication, I mean, when you go to the pharmacist, like they'll ask you if you're taking anything else and make sure it's not going to mess up with anything you have. But as far as we know now, there are no dangers. But of course, you're adding hormones to your body. So.
Yeah. I've heard women, and I think it was probably in the egg implantation phase, say, and I don't want to give bad information, this is anecdotal only, that they had developed breast cancer from trying to
Mm.
have, yeah.
Wow.
This is a woman probably in her, at the time, maybe in her late 40s.
Mm.
But age aside, I think what she was trying to do at the time was to do the implantation. I
Wow.
don't know. Check with your doctors. That is non-scientific. That is just
Yeah.
me anecdotally. Um, she shared with me this happened to her, and I thought, wow,
Oh,
didn't
wow.
know that. That's why I was asking if you've heard of, or if
Mm.
more information is available. I'm sure guys online, so check it out. So talk to me now. Now that we have a full picture, woo,
Mhm.
of the process of the how long this was.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
Less Good Man in Jersey says, fellas, the wife will always say she wasn't pregnant. She was. Okay. Get it straight. We're like, no, what are you talking about? Hormonal,
Exactly.
emotional? No. I
Mhm.
mean, let me have my 2 days a month, 3 days a month. But yeah, no, of course not. So now onto the podcast. So this is a harrowing, I say harrowing because it's just, again, no one really talks about the extensive commitment and psychological, emotional, and otherwise physical toll that this can take over the
Mhm.
period of time that you're so focused on this. Talk
Mhm.
about why the podcast. Tell us why you did the podcast.
Frustration not being heard. And of course, I have friends and like former bosses who were not Black, and they were like, oh, well, once I started to silently tell people, like, don't tell anybody else, those people were not Black. And they're like, oh, like half of the people I know are going through this. Like, you guys don't talk about this? And like, they were shocked. And I'm like, no, like, we literally don't talk about it. They're like, why? And so it was
Because Black people
confusing.
have this thing about fertility that everybody just gonna have 10,000 babies like grandma and great grandma. No,
Exactly.
no.
Exactly. So they were confused, like, why? Like, that doesn't
What's the
make
big secret?
sense. Yeah. So I just got frustrated. Again, someone had asked me something that just really just set me off because I'm like, if someone else asked me another question. So I already had ordered the podcast equipment. And then I think that question came and I was like, this is it. This is the night I'm going to do it. I recorded my first podcast explaining my story, what I had been through. And then I uploaded it, I put it on Facebook, and I literally closed my computer. And I was getting ready to go to bed. And first I panicked, like, oh my God, everyone's gonna know my business. Am I crazy? And then my sister started texting me and was like, you need to go on to Facebook. Like everyone's messaging you, people are responding to you or your
Oh
thing. I'm like, yeah.
wow.
I was like, who's responding? She's like everyone, like
You're like the
literally.
haters?
Yeah, exactly. Like she's like, literally, you need to go on. And I'm like, no, I'll go on in the morning. But I did like 3 o'clock in the morning. I went on. I was like, okay, let me see what people are saying. Because
Yes.
you're scared of being judged, or what people going to say, or or just again those thoughts of feeling less than or wondering, is this ever going to happen for me? Like I'm being vocal about it, but is it ever going to happen for me? So I
Yeah.
just really did it out of frustration and also out of the need to show that Black women deal with infertility too, and we don't have enough outlets to talk about this and to spread the information. Because once I posted it, people started messaging me. Some people that I knew were like, hey, I've been going through this. Please don't tell anybody. Please don't share. No, I don't want to be a guest on your podcast, but I just want to let you know.
Listen,
Keep me in your
our
prayers.
community
And I
is
was
so
like, oh my
sweet.
God. And one of the people was a guy, and I'm like, oh wow, like, oh, I know this person, and it just was like, wow, like I wish some of those people would share their stories because it really, really, really could help someone else. But no.
So what is the fear just of judgment, social judgment? Why wouldn't people want to share? Y'all, we talking, and I just dropped a link. If anybody want to come up, tonight is the night. Right now is the time to talk to our special guest author, playwright, and podcast host, Miss Sonhara Eastman. She's talking about her journey with infertility and how no one, especially when it comes to the Black diaspora, really likes to put their quote unquote bid. We got business. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't talk about your business. You don't share your business. You don't put your business out there. And there's all this stigma. People are so afraid that people are going to judge them because they can't get pregnant. And then you post, good for you for being so brave. You post, put your story out there. Oh my God, close my eyes, log out of Facebook. I don't want nobody to know. And then your sister got to tell you, girl, get on there. People are empathizing. People want to know more. People are
Yeah.
encouraged
Mhm.
and supportive. And so I think there's a big lesson there when it comes to what we think of as our scarlet letter, our Achilles heel, whatever you want to call it, and what it means to us. It might not mean the same thing to others. And again, some of the judgment we're afraid of is
Exactly.
probably not as intense or even existent as what we, would imagine. We know people gonna talk now. People always going to talk.
Exactly.
But the damage that you think it's gonna do is probably not gonna do. So you get this overwhelming response. You're up 3 a.m. reading your Facebook posts and the responses to it, and you still got people that's like, girl, don't tell nobody.
Exactly.
So what do you think drives that? Is that a social kind of stigma? And what do you think? Why?
I definitely think so. And I think it's the idea that it's so taboo in our community that Black people are just fertile. Even if you're a man, you're fertile, which is actually not true. And even now, the stats are that men, their sperm quality has dropped by like 50%. Those stats came out, I want to say, a couple of weeks ago.
Just men across the board?
Yes.
Wow.
And so that's scary. Why is that happening? Don't know. But just the idea that our community, again, something we don't talk about. So it's also like, you're treading into a place where these conversations are kind of undiscovered. Again, the idea of feeling less than a woman, less than a man, because again, I know men who've dealt with infertility and, they don't want to be the person in a relationship.
They definitely don't want nobody to know.
Exactly. Marriages have broken up because of it, especially when it is the man. Just the fear. I think fear, and also again things that we don't talk about and we're not vocal about. All those things and feeling less than adds to our shame and our silence as to why we don't talk about it. Why it's not Sunday dinner conversations. Why it's not things we talk about in the open. But for me, like I remembered. So I was going through this process. My grandmother died. And I just was so upset about it because I was like, oh my God, like, I wish I would have told her, like, that was dealing with infertility. I wish I would have told her. And, that time, you can't get it back once it's gone. But then I remembered, like, every Sunday in church, she would give this testimony about how the doctor said she would never have kids. And she said, but I had 5 girls. And she gave this testimony. I saw it every Sunday. She gave this testimony. And so when she was gone, it kept popping into my mind. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, so she actually, in a way, she actually was talking about it. Like, she was actually talking about infertility in her own way.
Yes.
Talking about it, but, through testimony, through church. And I was like, well, if she overcame it, like, I can overcome it because she had her first kid. I want to say like 33.
Which for her would have been late, very late.
Very late in life. And then she went on to have a set of twins, like 5 girls. And the doctor told her she would never, ever have children. And so that stayed in my mind the whole time I was going through my process. And I just kept seeing her and seeing her and seeing her. And I was like, okay, like this has to happen.
Oh, this is why we do what we do. The power of narrative, the power of storytelling. It's our culture, y'all. So even if y'all might say this show is not, the most fancy or most gossipy, just testimony alone I'm talking about on real topics can change and save and redirect a whole human being in their life.
Exactly.
So think about that. She was actually talking, as you said, about fertility, but didn't have language, didn't have doctors and stethoscopes and all that beyond saying, "No, you're not going to have it." Imagine people spoke that over people without the technology, and therefore understanding, how incredible the body is as well. And how it can regain and adapt and do what it needs to do when prompted and given the good food and all this other stuff and other conditions. So are we to expect, and last call for the panel, if you want to come up, now's the time. Drop your questions, final questions in the chat box. Appreciate that. Let me see. Doug says he knows why. Sperm quality is declining because of the hormones and lack of minerals in food.
Sure.
BPA from plastics. Plastics is causing higher estrogen in men, increasing rates of obesity. Wow. Thank you, Doug. Yeah, just the amount of plastic we use in general, guys. Plastic is all over our life, all over our planet. It's even in the atmosphere. So some of these chemical, which I say hormone disruptors and other things are affecting us all over this planet right now. And I do think, Doug, you're right when it comes to parts of our bodies and hormones that are now kind of, out of whack. Yes, there's a lot of conditional or should I say environmental contributors that are causing a shift both in men and in women. I know men, I know those relationships you're talking about. I've seen women leave men. Yeah, I've seen it. personally, where they were always thinking it was the woman.
Yeah.
And then when she finally went to the doctor, and Boo left him and got pregnant. Like, it was so in your face. It was like, what? Like, what? So this is, again, stigma that we need to kind of remove for both men and women.
Yeah.
That this can happen in low motility and low mobility, all of these things, low count. It is a part of, especially what's happening in men's bodies is not only, again, because of what they're doing, it's the environmental contributors to what's happening. So when you have done the podcast, were you doing it? Yes, Doug, I agree with you too. Mouthwashes, deodorants, all kinds of stuff. I agree. There's so much about it. You can do your research. A lot of people want to kind of bring this type of discussion to the fore because it is impacting our community much more. And folks are becoming much more wise to, okay, what am I doing? Shampoos, smell goods, perfumes, and things like this.
Yeah.
We need to really be aware that things called, a parfum, as they say, is also chemicals. I was just telling my father the other day, I'm like, stop with, heavily scented things. He loves very scented things. I'm like, that's a chemical.
Yeah, in it.
That's making it smell. So don't overkill your house with smell good.
Yeah.
So we got to do some educating on that. So is this your personal narrative mostly in terms of the podcast, or are you interviewing people? What can people expect?
So the first couple of episodes was just me, just literally tracking my story for like the 7 years I had gone through it. And at that point, I didn't have a kid yet. So it was just me, really, the first season, telling my story. The second season, I started having guests on the show, sharing their story about infertility, all those things. I want to say towards the second season when I shared that I had conceived, because I did not tell anybody, because I just was so terrified, even with that. At this point, I had the podcast, but I still was scared to tell people because I was like, what if this goes away? Like, what if something happens?
No, people lose. There's such a thing called vanishing babies, vanishing twins. Again, fertility and conceiving life is a miracle.
It really
and so people don't realize how much can go on in your body. One little hormone don't talk to this at the right time and don't say this, you lose a baby. You do, like, this is so, like, people don't understand. So many things have to work in tandem for your child to be conceived.
Yeah, it really is a miracle. So when I think I didn't share that I was pregnant until my baby shower, and at that point I think I was maybe like 6 weeks away, but the whole time, like, you really didn't know I was pregnant until I want to say like maybe 6.5 months. That's when my stomach kind of like started showing. Because I would just like kind of wear oversized shirts, and I didn't really gain weight until like the last I want to say 2 months of the pregnancy. So people didn't know that I was pregnant until when I had my baby shower that morning. I think I did a live or something, and I posted that I was pregnant, and so a lot of people congratulated me right away. And then my fear was also not just of me not making it to full term, the pregnancy, but also other women feeling upset or jealous or feeling like, oh, this isn't for me. So I got a lot of comments that day, people saying they were so happy for me. This gives them encouragement, seeing my journey, knowing about the 7 years. But then I also got some people who unfollowed me right away. So I guess they were mad. I don't know.
It hurts. Listen,
feelings, not about
it could be triggering.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I know personally 2 women. I'm talking about at the very end. I have a friend girl that was supposed to give birth the following weekend and lost her baby.
Wow.
And I also just went fine doctor's appointment a Friday. I'm talking about full term. And then went back after a holiday weekend, a Tuesday, no heartbeat.
Wow.
And I also know another lady had her baby shower the week before. She's like you. She waited the week before. I'm talking about belly big. And then the following weekend lost her baby. And we were all, I'm talking about, when I tell you, devastated. Like I say, people think just because you're pregnant don't mean you're going to have a baby.
Exactly.
It's scary, but people don't tell us this. So we think, oh, okay, it'll be just fine. But we just don't understand. Everybody's bodies are different. We have all these environmental contributions to all kinds of, defects or telling our bodies to do things at the wrong time. It's hard. So
the birth. Okay.
Exactly. And then survived the birth. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I was in labor for 24 hours and
Oh,
having to
wow.
have an emergency C-section. It was a lot.
So you've been through it, girl.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a lot.
It
Last
was
Command Jersey. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, it was a lot, but I'm thankful because by that point, I did have a village of people who were looking out for me, who were praying for me. My parents, their ministers, they were praying for me. They were there at the hospital with me. My brother had flew down. Everyone was there. My aunts, everyone came into town. Okay,
They're like, we're gonna be here for you.
exactly. This was right before COVID.
Oh,
Everyone came into town. My pastor in LA, he was on the phone with my mom, like, we're staying on the phone till she has his baby. Like, they kept calling back, like they
yes,
were praying, like, no, this baby is coming. Because several
yes.
times they kept saying, the heartbeat was, slowing down, all those things. Like, I was on oxygen. It was a mess.
So it was one of those rough pregnancy as well as, delivery.
Exactly. And the whole time I thought, oh, I'm going to have it easy, because people kept saying, oh, you went through this whole hard process with the pregnancy. With trying to have the baby, your pregnancy.
That's what people say. You're going to have the extra testimony. Watch this.
Exactly. Your pregnancy is going to be easy. I was sick the entire pregnancy. And then your birth is going to be easy. It was, like I said, a race to the finish. Like, it was a knockdown. But she's here.
Oh, imagine that. Now, so let me ask you. So did your grandma talk about any of those type of details with respect to her?
No, she literally in church. Again, the only record I have of her saying this is saying it in church. And so after she died, and which is obviously is very sad, depressing, this person that you've known all your life is gone. And I'm like
you didn't get to ask her.
Yeah, like I can't even, like I
ask
can't
her what happened.
Yeah, I can't even say anything to her. Like, I can't. Only thing I have is her testimony.
So that's interesting. I was curious. I was going to ask you, did she share anything at all beyond, obviously, what the doctor said, and then she had 5 beautiful girls.
When she passed, I got her Bible, and so she has several scriptures in there highlighted. So I started reading those scriptures every day. I said, okay, well, this must be
something in here. Yes,
exactly, some sort of roadmap. The year she got married, her husband's name, all that stuff. I was like, okay, this must be a roadmap.
Yes.
So yeah, I just use all those things.
Did your mom have any trouble with conceiving you?
No,
okay,
no one.
That's why I'm like, hereditary, maybe not.
No,
it's just my way my mind works. So only grandma. Interesting.
Yeah. Yep. No one else that we know of had difficulties. I do have some relatives who had like hysterectomies and stuff like that, but they were not trying to have children. Going through that battle of infertility. But no.
That's wild. Last good man in Jersey is enjoying the show. He said that's a great idea for a follow-up conversation. We'll have her back. Follow-up conversations. Getting pregnant is the first part. Hello.
Yes.
Successfully bringing a child to term. My goodness, is the second part. Again, many women through no fault of their own. It's just not your body not doing what it's supposed to do at the right time at the right place. It can be very, very difficult to deal with that. And I know people have gone through that mourning process. Guys, we're almost out of time. We're going to let her go. But if you have any final questions, go ahead. If you want last call for the open mic, if you want to come up and ask your question in person here, you can do that. I want y'all to check out her podcast. So season 1, Just You, Speaking Your Truth. Now, was it the same story, similar to what you had turned into your class? Like that type of narrative?
No. So the story, so it was two different things. So the podcast was just me, just kind of like just throwing up my story, basically, and just not caring what people had to say. And then what I wrote in grad school is actually a web series. It's on YouTube. You can look up Black Girls Fight Fertility. I did 2 episodes, and that was what I wrote it's part of what I wrote in grad school. So we're tracking this woman. She's a former author, and now she's written a diary detailing her fertility woes, and that's what the web series is about. And so that's what I wrote. This is a portion of what I wrote in my graduate class when the guy called the character my name, and everyone in the class started laughing. I'm like, this is
he's like, I see you, sis. Professor, you know me, but I don't need you to call me out in front of me.
I was so embarrassed.
So as final takeaways, and I'm enjoying this, y'all. And one thing I love about YouTube, it allows me to network, and I get to meet so much interesting people with such compelling stories like Miss Eastman. And I'm glad that you have gained the courage beyond writing the plays and
Yeah.
the screenplay that you did in grad school to
Exactly.
openly discussing it, so that we have a shift, especially in our culture,
Yeah.
where it goes from the silence and the guilt and the shame and the judgment to, my goodness, let me try to understand this. You don't know what that person is going through. You haven't walked in their shoes.
Exactly.
So where do we go from here? Is this something that needs to be talked about? Like, you mentioned a lot about your faith and in church. Are we doing a better job? Do you see there's a better trend among Black folk to kind of be more open about this?
So I think that there is a trend now with people talking about it a little bit more. And I won't say this very present moment, but when Gabrielle Union came out about her story, when Michelle Obama, I think definitely there was a tracking then with people kind of sharing their story. I think it's gotten a little bit quiet now. But I think we can definitely do a better job. We definitely need to do a better job of bringing Black stories to the forefront, things like this, so we can normalize it. I think we definitely need to do a better job of having infertility be more of a forefront in the church. Because before I went to California and outside of my parents, I never heard a pastor talk about infertility.
Yeah.
I would go to church on Mother's Day. Not that Mother's Day is a time for infertility, but any given season, there was never any discussion on infertility. There was never any groups about infertility. There was like mothers groups, single moms groups, all these different things, but there was never any outlet for infertility. So when I went to California, that was the first time someone ever preached about infertility. He was preaching about infertility. My mom kept telling me, "Oh, you need to go check out this church." I made friends with this person. I was like, I'm not going nowhere. Like, I was just like, I was done. And so it was like maybe 7 months later, I ended up going. And the first day I went, he was talking about Hannah. And he was preaching on that and saying, like, I believe if you want to conceive, that God is going to bless you. And then he brought me up and he prayed for me, not knowing my situation, not knowing that I was struggling to have a child. So I think that more churches need to be transparent with that. People come to church to get the word, to get healed, to get delivered. And this is a big issue that people want healing from coming into the church. And we need to talk about it.
I think you're 100% right. I think this is something, again, that still is majority of us consider it taboo. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to end on one question that might be a little bit too deep for the last question, but before we jumped on, I've been talking in my own circles in real life off of the internet about, what we talk about to women when it comes to, or the messages, I should say, we send women when it comes to, putting off, as much as we don't necessarily know what age people will remain fertile until, or if you'll have problems when you're even younger, there's this kind of, I don't want to say lackadaisicalness. I just think there's maybe unawareness about, the stereotype not necessarily being true, right? That every Black woman is super fertile and we're going to have a bunch of babies, and that we shouldn't really take our own fertility in our own hands when it comes to testing for fertility, testing your hormone levels, testing whether or not you have, some of these conditions like PCOS and endometriosis, or those type of things. We tend to, again, assume that we have forever. Not we. Okay, I'll talk about myself. But there is a message that is being sent that, you don't have to worry about it, not now, but you can take care of it later. And then we see people like J-Lo or Janet Jackson, almost 50, Mariah, and they have the best medical teams. They've been well taken care of. It's not everyday type of oh, this is just snap a finger and it happens. Those are like medical miracles, in fact, when you're staring 50 in the face and you're having children. So what do you think in terms of our social ethos of not necessarily being direct with our community, especially in those of us in career focused, middle class kind of upbringings? Why is there no, or maybe for some households there is an emphasis on, try to get it done. But do you think that is a problem when it comes to talking about this? And then a lot of people, when they wake up finally and start to think about this, it's just a lot of pain, or maybe it's too late.
I definitely think that, and someone mentioned this to me recently, they said it's so confusing, like, being a woman, having a career, doing all these things. When you first finish college, it's like, okay, even when you go to college, don't get pregnant, don't get married, focus on do all these things. And they're like, now it's confusing to me because I should have had my kid when I was in my 20s. Like I should have gone on that path. Like I should have done that with some other people that I know. Like now I'm here in this stage. And it's like, well, why are you not married? Why don't you have kids? All these things. So when they said it, I'm like, oh, that is actually true. Like it is very confusing. Don't do this, don't do that. And then once you get to this place and you've worked and you've done your career, you may not have necessarily met the man that you want to be with, or you may have met the man that you want to be with, and you just don't have children. It's like everyone's bombarding you with questions. So it's like, you really don't know where to go from there. But I always tell people, no matter what, because I'm a person of faith, I'm just like, if you want it to happen, like move forward, go see your doctor. Like, don't wait, because people will message me and I'm like, well, I'm not a doctor. Like,
they want you to get a professional opinion.
Doctor, I think you should definitely see your doctor. I'll definitely be praying for you. I'm not a doctor. Go see, but you'd be surprised. Even women at 40 have not actually gone to the doctor to go get checked to find out what my options are, whether it's freezing my eggs or my options, how come I'm not conceiving. Like, just go to your doctor. Start there. Like that's step. Like your doctor's not going to publicize your information on Facebook or.
Yes, I think also people are very weird, but and I say weird, but I just say in our culture, when it comes to this kind of faith walk, we don't think speaking it. Don't call that out. Don't put that on me. And if I name it, I'm claiming it. No, sis,
you have to do the work. Actually, like faith works is dead. You still got to do.
Yes, you still got to do the work. You still got to go. So let this be a reminder to empower whoever is watching, man or woman, when it comes to your health, when it comes to your fertility, that you too can just step out there. There's nothing wrong with going to get, your blood tests or your hormone levels tested, just so you understand really what am I working with. So, I mean, again, sometimes it can be very daunting, very scary, but there are podcasts out there. There are support groups. I know one locally called Filling Empty Wombs, a lady named Sandra Elidor, who I've had on this show. She has talked about her journey. And again, she was early 30s, married, and could not conceive. And it cost her a lot of money. In her program, she pays for fertility treatments for qualified women. So
we need more of that.
Yeah, because it's expensive. There's, again, I'm assuming that you have the money, even if you wanted to do this.
Or that you can take out a loan, because some people can't take out loans. Like,
exactly. So all that.
$5,000 loan. I'm like, yeah.
You about to refinance if you got a house. Like it's a crazy thing. And so I'm glad you're bringing awareness to it. So when is the next season? Are you in the minute? What's going on with the podcast?
So we're in season 5. Right now we have new episodes out. I'm recording another episode tomorrow. So I usually put them out every other week because things are a little crazy now with schedules. But usually every other week I put one out. You can catch it on Instagram, on my website, Black Girls Guide to Fertility. It's also on Podbean and iTunes.
I have enjoyed our conversation, y'all. Give it up for Miss Sonhara Eastman. Check it out. As she said, Black Girls Guide to Fertility. Is always a pleasure to meet, again, dynamic women who are making space for others to learn, to grow. And again, I'm sure just by talking to you here, I'm sure that you've developed a little level of trust and rapport with your audience that they want to tell you their business and don't want to go to the doctor.
Exactly.
I'm just trying to
go to the doctor.
Exactly. I'm here to encourage. I need you to go handle your business. Exactly. So that's the name of the podcast. You see it there on your screen. If you're listening, go to Black Girls Guide to Fertility. Support it. How else can we support you?
Also, check out the web series. I did it a few years ago before the pandemic started. It's a great series. It sheds more light on my journey. The character is loosely based off me. That's also Black Girls Guide to Fertility. It's on YouTube. You'll see it there.
I'll find it. I can't wait to watch it, y'all. I'm thankful for her time. She got to go. She got a little one. So I appreciate you. Would love to have you back in the spring to talk a little bit more about what you're doing. And again, it's a pleasure. We will go, y'all, sub and go check out Black Girls Guide to Fertility on all platforms that she just mentioned. I appreciate you, sis. Thanks for coming on. You have a great night. It's such a pleasure, again, meeting other fantastic women. Y'all, I will see y'all live on Saturday. Show coming up with who? Nutrition lawyer, as well as Kirk D.A. Anderson. We're bringing the fitness and the eat right gurus for you just in time for Christmas. It'll be Saturday, 12 noon. Look out for that show and go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe if you're brand new before you head out. I appreciate each and every one of you watching. I hope you got something positive from today's broadcast. Go ahead and thank you. Good convo. Okay, I know you guys enjoyed it. Thank you, Brown Gal Peace Lounge. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye now.